Hi guys, Mark Dawes, and in this video I want to talk to you about this little booklet that's in front of me right now. It's the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But before I do that, I just want to remind you that on the 9th of July we have our annual Use of Force seminar happening at the Cavendish Conference Centre in London. It's a great event, we've got some great speakers lined up and some great content to give you. But the reason for this video, as I've said already, is to talk about this little book. And this little book is the inspiration behind what we do. Yeah, this little thing here. You know, it was issued by Waterstones on the 50th anniversary on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It cost £1 at the time. And someone actually bought it for me and gave it to me. And I now keep it with me wherever I go. It's in my computer bag, it's in my briefcase, it's in my luggage. This thing follows me around and goes with me everywhere. And the reason is it's hugely inspirational and it keeps me on track. Because it's the reason why we do what we do that's important. And I wanted to share a bit of that with you this morning. So if you don't mind, I'll read you the introduction to this book. Now, I was going to give you snippets of it, give you like an abridged version of it, but it wouldn't have done it justice. So I want to read you the introduction to this, which was written by Ralph Steadman, which I find hugely inspirational. I'm sure it will inspire you too. And it may possibly give you a very good reason to really consider attending this event on the 9th of July. So without any further delay, let me read you this introduction. Without the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, my next sentence could contravene some countries' arbitrary rule of law and cause all others to surreptitiously conspire to suppress its blatant defiance of state. I have the right to hold an opinion, express it, celebrate it, broadcast it, live by it, and travel with it anywhere I so desire, and what's more, convince others by peaceful means that they should hold that opinion too. That, in essence, is Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and entombed within it is the right of any artist of any faith, impulse or inclination to express him or herself with unbridled passion and conviction, sufficient to bestow upon the world a Pandora's box of riches or curses we could probably live without. Now, why was I not told that, or given this little booklet itself back in 1948, when I had just won a scholarship to Abergele Grammar School in North Wales? The former Secretary General of the United Nations, in an introduction to this little gem, states that the UN General Assembly at the time called upon all member countries to publicise the text of the Declaration and to cause it to be disseminated, displayed, read and expounded principally in schools and other educational institutions, without distinction, based on the political status of countries or territories. Now, where was I when his member countries did exactly that? Was I playing truant? Off sick? Drunk? Not then. Not any of that. I was an obedient child of 11 and perfectly capable of digesting the clarity of such proposals, even in the playground. Were we perhaps off the map? Wales is, after all, only a little country concerned with sheep and Welsh festivals of the arts. During the war, our people have been subjected to a policy of linguistic genocide, the death of the Welsh language. My mother was a loving, law-abiding soul and never spoke Welsh again at home, so as not to be a bother, as she used to say. Article 19 is obviously a dangerous one amongst 29 other equally important human agreements, but it is probably the one article which keeps well hidden within its carefully unbiased structure the undeniable fact that its content releases the power of the individual to be both artist and maniac. The 1948 United Nations Assembly had unwittingly created a monster, an embarrassing loophole, a well-meaning but desperate humanitarian gesture. In their earnest intentions to neutralise any future tyranny in the shadow of the recent Holocaust, freedom of communication was paramount. Slipping it in neatly between freedom of thought, Article 18, and freedom of peaceful assembly, Article 20, should have covered the board, but the enemies of democracy are forever busy. Freedom to think is an uncontrollable private act, and even peaceful assembly is innocuous as far as it goes. Nobody can keep every human being in the whole world in solitary confinement, but broadcasting thought and acting upon it? Oh no. Though cyberspace may yet find a noble destiny, radio and television stations, newspapers, books and printing presses are the first victims of tyranny. They remain the lethal chink of light and therefore of hope against a repressive regime. Wei Ying-sheng could be regarded as a lethal chink of light when he was sentenced to 14 years in 1995 for his part in the Tiananmen Square uprising. The hope that he was still alive was the spur that kept the whole question of Chinese democracy in a state of flux. The difference between Chinese communism and Chinese culture became apparent to the young. Communism offers no personal freedom. Chinese culture offers a wide spectrum of tradition and evolution and a chance to develop as individuals. The much maligned philosopher, Nietzsche, caught the breadth of the world's eternal dilemma in one sentence. It is only an aesthetic phenomenon that existence and the world are permanently justified. At the time of its publication, every individual of school age should have had the articles drummed into them like the Ten Commandments, which we did learn. Thou shalt not, etc. The negative was emphasized like public hygiene, and what we were told was of no concern of ours. The British Empire was still intact, even then, so everything was assumed to be in order. The world then still believed that the state knew best, and any claim that we might have rights for simply being born was at best a weird piece of human presumption. It sounded like a law for troublemakers, a clarion call to those who think only of revenge. Many crimes are committed in the name of the great cultural revolutions and the icons of their instigation. Neither can the administrators of all repression be free of private thoughts. Who can shave in the morning or master their worry lines without seeing their fear, guilt, and a loathing of their trade? Who does not hear the death knell of those hasty ideologies that twist natural loyalties against their own species and renders them slaves to the cancer that is not enlightenment at all, but the virus that makes them sick and makes them blind? Within this fatal trap of mid-20th century political appeasement, of convenient international diplomacy, a tacit agreement was mumbled into a thinks bubble. Pay lip service to the idea of individual human rights, but keep pumping the UN Charter, which declares that all states have the right to sovereign rule and therefore could, with impunity, conduct their state business like Machiavellian Christians or Muslims or rampant fundamentalists. They'll go with that. You can't meddle indiscriminately in other people's affairs. It's okay to imprison, torture, maim, murder, rape, disseminate, crush, torment, disinherit, cleanse, help even, behind our blanket blessing, behind our sovereign rights. But the individual? Who? He? The disgust I feel for sovereign rights strengthens my conviction that we have to begin to establish human rights. We may even have to abandon sovereign rights to protect the individual, you and me. Joe Blagojevich and his wife, Maria del Francesca, and her sister, and the brother, and the children. Don't forget the children. We see them every night on the telly, desperate, weeping, bleeding, holding out their arms for some evidence of basic human mercy or clutching their meagre belongings as the only thing they can trust. We balefully watch it all as a fact of life, as though they are in another world, and we silently count our blessings in our private thoughts, which we are allowed, and then we hastily change the subject. Expect nothing from the state except your passport and your ticket home to a prison of your country's choice. A free hotel for you and your kind. The rats that came ashore with the cargo have got a sporting chance of survival. They can hide and set up house, and they don't need a passport. And they don't speak out, except in times of plague. But you can be an outcast for speaking out, according to the protections sealed into the United Nations Charter, which superseded the Treaty of Versailles and the League of Nations after World War I, which the US, by the way, refused to join. It required member countries to respect territorial independence, while such regimes ruled the world. Hitler used it as his own Bill of Rights. The men in brown shirts, Homburgs and leather overcoats could have you rounded up and killed like a rabid dog for thinking an original thought. They could call it treason, from behind their own wall of sovereign rights, and peace in our time put the final nail in the coffin for the individual. I go to bed every night with a private thought that there may come a knock on the door at 3 a.m, and it's them, the thought police, who chose me tonight. I think often of Victor Jara, a folk singer and civil rights activist in Chile in the 70s at the time of Allende, who was beaten and had his wrist broken to prevent him from ever stirring people's hearts again. The state paraded him in public to show how strong they were. A sovereign state displayed its power, a eulogy of impotence that instills nothing in an individual's mind but fear and revulsion. We are all guilty of gross negligence or convenient choice. We have chosen to turn a blind eye to the constant injustice of our own species against our own kind. We no longer deserve to belong to the animal kingdom. We have betrayed an innate sense of survival, the one instinctive law which protects all creatures from extinction. Compassion has been sacrificed on the altar of political expediency. You may win the battle to be on top for a while, but unless the individual is the object of your struggle, you will never reach that plateau of certainty to bring you peace of mind. In South Africa, they call that state Mandela. May the whole world reach a state of Mandela, tomorrow if necessary, but preferably today. Ralph Steadman, 16th of August, 1998. Hopefully, we'll see you on the 9th of July. Thank you.